When Elliot Vanderhal defies his family's legacy by choosing Camille Rhodes, a foster care survivor and devoted teacher, love ignites a war with Boston's elite. But can their bond withstand power, prejudice, and betrayal? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The autumn sun warmed Camille Rhodes's classroom as she arranged paintbrushes for her afternoon art class. At 27, Camille had built a life for herself against impossible odds. Growing up in foster care had taught her to cherish stability, and she'd found it here at Westbridge High School in Boston, where her students adored her gentle guidance. "Miss Rhodes, can I talk to you?" A shy freshman lingered in the doorway. Camille smiled. "Of course, Tanya. Come on in." As she helped the girl with her project, Camille glanced at her phone. A text from Elliot made her heart skip. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you." For a year now, they'd been dating in secret. Not because Camille wanted it that way, but because Elliot Vanderhal came from a world completely different from hers. The Vanderhals were Boston royalty, with money that went back 6 generations. Old money, white money, the kind of family that had buildings named after them. Camille tucked her phone away as her students began filing in. She'd never had much in life, but she had her dignity and her pride. Sometimes she wondered if their relationship was heading anywhere, or if she was just Elliot's secret, something he'd eventually outgrow. Across town, Elliot Vanderhal sat in his father's investment firm, loosening his tie while staring out at the Boston skyline. At 30, he was everything the Vanderhal name demanded: Harvard-educated, impeccably dressed, and positioned to take over the family business. But lately, none of it felt right. His assistant knocked on the door. "Your mother called again. She wants to confirm you'll be at the Morgan charity gala tonight." Elliot sighed. "Tell her I have other plans. She said to remind you that the Prestons will be there. Apparently, their daughter Isabella is back from Europe." Elliot knew exactly what that meant. His mother had been trying to set him up with suitable women from their social circle for years. Women who looked like the Vanderhals. Women who belonged in their world. But his world had changed the day he wandered into a community art exhibition and saw Camille standing by her students' paintings, her face glowing with pride as she explained each child's vision. His phone buzzed. His mother. "Hello, Mother." "Elliot, darling." Margaret Vanderhal's voice was syrup-coated steel. "Please tell me you're not canceling tonight. The Prestons—" "I have plans," he said firmly. "What plans could possibly be more important than connecting with the Prestons? Isabella would make a perfect match for you." Elliot closed his eyes. "I'm seeing someone, Mother." A pause. "Who? Why haven't I met her? What family is she from?" "Her name is Camille. She's a teacher." "A teacher?" His mother's voice dropped 10 degrees. "Well, that's charitable of you to spend time with her, but surely this isn't serious." Elliot gripped the phone tighter. "Actually, it is. I've been seeing her for a year." "A year?" Margaret's voice rose sharply. "And you never thought to mention this? Who is she, Elliot? What's her background?" The moment of truth. "She grew up in foster care. She put herself through college. She's an art teacher at Westbridge High, and she's black, Mother." The silence that followed was deafening. "I see," Margaret finally said, her voice ice-cold. "I think you should come over for dinner tomorrow night. Your father and I need to speak with you." The call ended before he could respond. The small Italian restaurant was their special place. Tucked away in a quiet corner of the North End, it was where Elliot and Camille could be themselves, without worrying about running into anyone from his world. "You're quiet tonight," Camille said, reaching across the table for his hand. Her warm brown eyes searched his face. "Everything okay?" Elliot squeezed her hand. "I told my mother about us today." Camille's breath caught. "How did she take it?" "About how you'd expect." He tried to smile. "She wants me to come to dinner tomorrow night. Alone, I'm guessing." "For now." He looked at her intently. "But I'm done hiding, Camille. I love you." "I love you too." She hesitated. "But Elliot, I know how these things go. Your family, they're not going to accept me easily. Then that's their loss." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and placed it on the table. "I was going to wait, but after today I don't want to waste any more time." Camille stared at the box, her heart pounding. "Elliot, I haven't opened it yet," he said quietly. "It holds my grandmother's ring. It's been in our family for generations. A family heirloom." Camille pulled her hand back. "Elliot, you can't give me that. Your mother would—" "I don't care what she would do." He leaned forward. "But I'm not going to propose yet. Not like this. I want to do it right. I want my family to see you for who you are first." Tears welled in Camille's eyes, And if they don't accept me, then we'll face that together. The Vanderhal mansion loomed large against the evening sky. Elliot parked his car in the circular driveway, dreading what was to come. The family home was a monument to old Boston wealth, a 3-story colonial with pristine white columns and perfectly manicured grounds. Henderson, the butler who had known Elliot since childhood, opened the door. "Good evening, Mr. Elliot. Your parents are waiting in the study." The study was his father's domain, where serious family matters were discussed. Elliot found his parents sitting stiffly, his mother with a glass of white wine, his father standing by the fireplace. "Son?" William Vanderhal nodded curtly. "Elliot?" His mother didn't smile. "Sit down." Elliot remained standing. "I know why you called me here." "Do you?" Margaret set her wineglass down. "Because I don't think you understand what you're doing. A teacher? With no family background? What could you possibly have in common with someone like that?" "Someone like what, Mother?" "You know exactly what I mean." She stood up, smoothing her designer dress. "You're a Vanderhal. You have responsibilities to this family, to our legacy." William cleared his throat. "What your mother is trying to say is that certain matches would be more beneficial for your future, for the family business." "So this is about business?" Elliot laughed bitterly. "Or is it about the fact that Camille is black?" Margaret flinched. "Lower your voice. This isn't about race. It's about suitability. It's about what's expected of someone in your position." "I love her, Mother." "Love?" Margaret scoffed. "You're 30 years old, not some teenager. Marriage in our circle is about alliances, about maintaining what we've built." Elliot turned to his father. "And what do you think, Dad?" William Vanderhal looked uncomfortable. "I think you need to consider your position carefully, son. The board position we've been grooming you for, is that a threat?" Elliot's voice hardened. "Date who we approve of or lose your inheritance." "No one is threatening you," his mother snapped. "We're trying to protect you from making a terrible mistake." Elliot reached into his pocket, feeling the small velvet box. "I'm going to ask her to marry me." Margaret's face went pale. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." His mother stood up, trembling. "If you give that ring to that woman, you're disrespecting everything this family stands for. That ring has been worn by Vanderhal women for 6 generations. Then it's about time someone wore it with dignity." Elliot shot back. Margaret's eyes flashed. "A black woman will never wear our ring, Elliot. Our family has an image to maintain." The words hung in the air like poison. Elliot took a step back, shocked by his mother's bluntness. "I never thought I'd hear you say something like that out loud." William looked at his wife with disappointment, but said nothing. "Next weekend is the board dinner," Margaret said, changing tactics. "Everyone will be there to celebrate your appointment. It would be the perfect opportunity to reconnect with Isabella Preston. I'm bringing Camille to that dinner." "Absolutely not." Margaret's voice rose. "I forbid it." "I'm not asking permission, Mother. I'm telling you what's going to happen." Margaret's face hardened. "If you bring that woman to our home, to an event with our colleagues and friends, you will regret it." Elliot looked between his parents. His father had turned away, staring into the fireplace, unwilling to stand up to his wife. "I'll see you at the dinner," Elliot said quietly. "Both of you." Camille was grading papers in her small apartment when Elliot called. "How did it go?" she asked. Elliot's hesitation told her everything. "About as expected. My mother had a lot to say." "Nothing good, I'm guessing." "It doesn't matter what she thinks," Elliot said firmly. "There's a dinner next weekend for my board appointment. I want you to come with me." Camille's stomach knotted. "Are you sure that's a good idea? Meeting your parents for the first time at a formal dinner?" "It's time, Camille. I'm done hiding you away like some secret." "What did she say about me?" Camille asked softly. Elliot paused. "Nothing worth repeating." "That bad? She'll come around once she meets you." "Elliot." Camille's voice was gentle but firm. "I grew up black in America. I know what it's like when people don't want you in their spaces." "Maybe we should wait." "I'm not waiting anymore," he interrupted. "I want you there. Will you come?" Camille closed her eyes, weighing her options. She loved Elliot, but she wasn't naive. The world they lived in wasn't a fairy tale. "Okay," she finally said, "but promise me something. Anything. If this goes badly, don't burn bridges with your family because of me. I don't want to be the reason you lose your relationship with them." Elliot's voice softened. "You're worth fighting for, Camille. I need you to believe that." After they hung up, Camille sat quietly in her living room. She'd learned early in life not to expect too much, not to hope for easy acceptance. She'd worked twice as hard for everything she had. She looked at the small bookshelf where she kept treasured photos of her students and the few mementos from her childhood. No family photos, no heirlooms, nothing passed down through generations. What would it be like to walk into the Vanderhal world, to face people who had decided she didn't belong before they'd even met her? She thought of her students, how she taught them to stand tall, to know their worth. What kind of example would she set if she hid away now? With a deep breath, Camille picked up her phone and texted Elliot, "I'll be there, and I'll make you proud." The week passed in a blur of anxiety for Camille. The night before the dinner, Elliot arrived at her apartment with a garment bag. "What's this?" she asked as he hung it on her door. "A dress. For tomorrow night." He looked nervous. "You don't have to wear it if you don't like it." Camille unzipped the bag to reveal a stunning emerald green gown, simple but elegant. "It's beautiful," she whispered, touching the fabric. "I thought the color would look amazing with your skin tone," Elliot said, watching her face. "Oh, you don't think it's too much?" "It's perfect." She looked up at him. "But Elliot, are you sure about tomorrow? Your mother made it clear she doesn't want me there." He took her hands. "Trust me, it's time." Something in his expression made her uneasy. "What are you planning?" "I just want everyone to meet the woman I love," he said, but his eyes held something more. The night of the dinner arrived. Camille stood before her mirror in the emerald dress, her natural curls framing her face. She'd kept her makeup minimal, her only jewelry a pair of small pearl earrings that had been a gift from her favorite teacher when she graduated high school. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. "Car is picking you up in 15 minutes. You don't need to be nervous, just be yourself." But Camille was nervous. She'd faced many challenges in her life, but nothing quite like this. She was about to walk into a room full of people who believed she didn't belong. When the car arrived, the driver handed her an envelope. Inside was a note from Elliot. "Remember, you're not walking into their world. They're meeting mine. I love you." The Vanderhal estate was lit up like a palace, cars lining the long driveway. Camille felt her heart pounding as the driver opened her door. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the entrance, where a butler stood waiting. "Miss Rhodes?" He bowed slightly. "Mr. Elliot asked me to escort you directly to the dining room." As they approached double doors, Camille could hear the murmur of voices inside. The butler opened the door and suddenly the room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Across the elegantly set table, Margaret Vanderhal's hand tightened around her wine glass, her face a mask of forced politeness. William Vanderhal looked down at his plate, and there was Elliot, rising from his chair, his face breaking into a smile that made her heart swell. "Everyone," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room, "I'd like you to meet Camille Rhodes." As Camille stepped forward, she held her head high, feeling the weight of judgment in every gaze. But in Elliot's eyes, she saw only love, and something that looked remarkably like pride. Margaret Vanderhal stood, her smile not reaching her eyes. "You must be the teacher. Elliot told me you work with children. How noble." Camille smiled back, years of navigating difficult situations coming to her aid. "Yes, I teach them to spot danger and rise above it." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Elliot came to her side, taking her hand. "Camille, let me introduce you to everyone." As he led her around the table, Camille felt Margaret Vanderhal's eyes burning into her back. The battle lines had been drawn, and the night was just beginning. The Vanderhal dining room glittered with crystal and silver. Camille sat beside Elliot, aware of the sideways glances and whispered comments. She recognized the look. She'd seen it her whole life. The surprise, the assessment, the judgment. "So, Miss Rhodes," said an older man across the table, "Elliot tells us you teach art at a public school." "Yes, at Westbridge High," Camille replied with a smile. "I've been there for 5 years now." "How interesting," said a woman in pearls. "Was teaching always your passion?" "It found me," Camille said simply. "I had a teacher who changed my life when I was in foster care. I wanted to do the same for others." An uncomfortable silence followed the mention of foster care. Margaret Vanderhal quickly changed the subject. "Isabella, tell everyone about your time in Paris." Isabella just returned from studying at the Sorbonne, she added, glancing meaningfully at Elliot. A slender blonde woman with perfect posture smiled. "It was divine. Daddy's considering opening a new office there, so I may be moving back." "How wonderful," Margaret gushed. "Isabella's father and William have been friends since Harvard. Our families have vacationed together for years." The message couldn't have been clearer. This was the kind of woman Margaret wanted for her son. Elliot reached under the table and squeezed Camille's hand. Camille just had her students' artwork displayed at the Boston Art Festival. 3 of them won scholarships. How rewarding it must be, Isabella said with practiced politeness. Working with underprivileged children. Camille met her gaze steadily. They're just children, with dreams and talents like any other. They don't need pity. They need opportunity. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in approval. More wine, anyone? William Vanderhal offered, trying to ease the tension. Throughout the first course, Camille noticed how Elliot barely touched his food. His jaw was tight, his eyes moving between her and his mother. He was planning something, she could feel it. Elliot tells us you grew up in Boston? William asked Camille, making an effort his wife wouldn't. Yes, I did. All over Boston, actually. She smiled. Foster care meant I lived in many neighborhoods. And your parents? Margaret asked sharply. Mother, Elliot warned. It's okay, Camille said calmly. My mother died when I was 6. I never knew my father. How did you manage college? Someone asked. Scholarships? Scholarships, loans, and 3 jobs, Camille answered. I worked as a janitor in the evenings, a barista in the mornings, and a tutor on weekends. Elliot looked at her with pride. Camille graduated at the top of her class. Remarkable, William said, and sounded like he meant it. Margaret's lips thinned. Yes, quite the Cinderella story. Elliot's hand tightened on his fork. Speaking of stories, Margaret continued, turning to the table, did I mention that the Vanderhal Foundation is funding a new wing at the Museum of Fine Arts? We'll be showcasing our family collection. Your family has quite a history of collecting art, Camille said. I saw the Vanderhal collection exhibition last year with my students. Margaret looked surprised. You did? Yes. I was particularly moved by the painting of Boston Harbor from the 1800s. The artist captured a slave ship in the background, a powerful commentary. Margaret's smile faltered. Well, art is certainly subjective. History isn't, Camille replied softly. The tension in the room thickened. Elliot cleared his throat. Camille is an incredible artist herself. Amateur work can be so expressive, Margaret said dismissively. William Vanderhal shot his wife a look. Perhaps Miss Rhodes could show us her work sometime. I'd like that, Camille said. As the servers brought in the second course, Isabella leaned toward Elliot. Remember that summer in Cape Cod when we snuck onto my father's yacht? We must have been, what, 16? 17, Elliot replied shortly. Isabella practically grew up with Elliot, Margaret told Camille with a pointed smile. They have so much history together. How nice to have that continuity, Camille said diplomatically. Yes, well, certain backgrounds naturally align, Margaret added. Elliot set his glass down with force. Mother, William interrupted. I think it's time I said a few words about Elliot's board appointment. The room's attention shifted as William stood. He spoke about family legacy, about the Vanderhal name and its responsibilities, about Elliot following in his footsteps. To Elliot, William concluded, raising his glass, may you uphold the Vanderhal traditions and lead our business into the future. Everyone drank. Camille noticed Margaret watching her, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. Now, Margaret said after William sat down, perhaps Isabella would favor us with a song. She studied piano at Juilliard before Paris. Isabella made a show of reluctance before moving to the grand piano in the corner. Her playing was technically perfect, a classical piece performed with precision but little emotion. When she finished, the applause was enthusiastic. Margaret beamed. Wonderful as always, dear, she said. Elliot used to play as well, though he never had your dedication. Elliot smiled tightly. I remember us playing together at my parents' 20th anniversary party. Oh, yes, Isabella laughed. Your mother had to practically drag you to the piano. Camille, do you play? William asked. No formal training, she admitted. But I learned by ear at the community center where I grew up. Perhaps you could play something, William suggested, ignoring his wife's sharp look. Camille hesitated, but Elliot nodded encouragingly. I'd love to hear you play. She walked to the piano, feeling every eye on her. She sat down, took a breath, and began to play. It wasn't classical music, but a soulful melody she'd composed herself. She closed her eyes, letting the music speak for her, about struggle, about hope, about finding beauty in unexpected places. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before applause broke out, warmer and more genuine than before. That was beautiful, William said. Did you compose that yourself? Yes, Camille nodded. Music was my first love before art. How versatile, Margaret said with a tight smile. Though there's something to be said for mastering one discipline rather than dabbling in many. I find that different forms of expression feed each other, Camille replied. As dessert was served, the conversation thankfully turned to other topics. Camille caught Elliot checking his watch several times. Something was definitely coming. Finally, as coffee was being poured, Elliot stood up with his champagne flute. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced. Margaret smiled, clearly expecting him to say something about his new position. "Not just for my new position," Elliot continued, "but for the woman who reminds me who I am when all of this becomes too loud." Margaret's smile froze. "This family gave me everything. Money, education, power. But Camille—" He looked down at her with such love that Camille felt her heart swell. "Camille gave me vision. She's my calm in the chaos, my truth in a house full of performance." The room was completely silent now. Camille could sense what was coming and felt both terrified and exhilarated. Elliot reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box she recognized from the restaurant. Gasps spread through the room. Margaret's face drained of color. "Elliot, not now," she hissed. But Elliot was already kneeling beside Camille's chair. Her heart pounded as he took her hand. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he said, his voice strong and clear, "even if it means walking away from everything behind me." He opened the box, revealing a stunning antique diamond ring, intricate and beautiful. "Camille Rhodes, will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't look around for approval. She just smiled and said, "Yes," in front of everyone who thought they could scare me away. As Elliot slipped the ring onto her finger, Margaret shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly. "How dare you?" she whispered, her voice shaking with rage. "That ring has been in our family for generations. And now it's Camille's," Elliot said firmly, standing to face his mother. "I will not allow this," Margaret declared. "It's not your decision to make," Elliot replied. Margaret turned to her husband. "William, say something." William Vanderhal looked torn, glancing between his wife and son. "Perhaps this isn't the place." "There's no better place," Elliot cut in. "I wanted everyone to witness this moment, to see that I choose Camille completely and without reservation." "You're making a spectacle of yourself," Margaret snapped, "of our family name." "No, Mother. I'm finally being honest." Isabella stood up. "I think I should go." "No, please stay," Margaret insisted desperately. "This is just a misunderstanding." "It's not," Elliot said. "I love Camille, and I'm going to marry her, with or without your blessing." Margaret's face contorted with anger. "If you marry her, you can forget about your position on the board. You can forget about your inheritance." A stunned silence fell over the room. "Margaret," William said quietly, "that's enough." But Margaret was beyond reason. "I worked too hard building this family's reputation to watch you throw it away on some charity case." The words hung in the air like a slap. Camille flinched, the joy of the moment tarnished. "Apologize to Camille," Elliot demanded. "I will not," Margaret retorted. "She doesn't belong here, and you know it." Camille stood up, her dignity intact despite the humiliation. "Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Vanderhal. I think it's time for me to leave." "Camille, wait," Elliot said, grabbing her hand. "Let her go," Margaret said. "And if you have any sense, you'll stay and we'll forget this embarrassing episode." Elliot looked at his mother with cold eyes. "If she leaves, I leave, and I won't be coming back." "Don't threaten me, Elliot. You have responsibilities." "Yes, I do. To myself and to the woman I love." William finally stood. "Margaret, this has gone far enough. You stay out of this," she snapped. "You've always been too soft on him." The other guests were clearly uncomfortable, some making excuses to leave. Isabella was already being escorted out by the butler. "Let's go, Camille," Elliot said, taking her hand. Margaret blocked their path. "If you walk out that door with her, you're no longer my son." A heavy silence fell. Camille squeezed Elliot's hand, suddenly afraid he was sacrificing too much. "Elliot," she whispered, "maybe we should talk about this later." "There's nothing to talk about," he said, looking straight at his mother. "I've made my choice." He led Camille toward the door, Margaret's words following them. "That ring is a family heirloom. It belongs to the Vanderhals." Elliot turned back one last time. "It belongs to the woman who will be my wife. Goodbye, Mother." As they walked out, Camille heard William's voice. "Margaret, what have you done?" In Elliot's car, Camille sat in silence, the ring heavy on her finger. The events of the night replayed in her mind like a bad dream. "I'm sorry," Elliot said, driving away from the estate. "I knew she'd be difficult, but I didn't think she'd go that far." "You've just been disowned," Camille said quietly. "Because of me." "No, because of her own prejudice." He reached for her hand. "I don't regret anything. Elliot, this is your family, your inheritance, your future. You're my future." He pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face her. Camille, I've spent my whole life living up to the Vanderhal name, being exactly who they wanted me to be. Tonight was the first time I've ever stood up for what I truly want. But what about tomorrow and the day after? Tears filled her eyes. What happens when you realize what you've given up? I'm not giving up anything that matters. He touched her face gently. The money, the board position, none of that was ever really mine. It was just chains disguised as privilege. Camille looked down at the ring. Maybe I shouldn't wear this. It means so much to your family. It means everything to me that you're wearing it. He lifted her hand and kissed it. My grandmother was the only person in that family who ever encouraged me to find my own path. She would have loved you. Camille wasn't so sure, but she didn't argue. What will you do now about work? I've been thinking about that for a while, Elliot admitted. I've always been interested in education reform, making real changes in how schools are funded, especially in underserved communities. Really? Camille looked surprised. You inspired me. Seeing how you work with those kids, how you fight for them, it made me realize I could use my connections for something that actually matters. He started the car again. Let's go home, your place, not mine. I don't want to be in any Vanderhal property tonight. The next morning, Camille woke to find Elliot already up, making coffee in her small kitchen. The normalcy of the scene struck her, as if last night's drama hadn't happened. Morning, he said, handing her a cup. I called my father. Camille tensed. What did he say? He wants to meet with us, without my mother. When? Today. For lunch. Elliot sat beside her. You don't have to come if you don't want to. Camille took a deep breath. No, I'll go. We're in this together. A few hours later, they met William Vanderhal at a quiet restaurant downtown. He looked tired, older somehow. Thank you for coming, he said, standing to greet them. His eyes went to the ring on Camille's finger, but he said nothing about it. After they ordered, William cleared his throat. I want to apologize for last night, for Margaret's behavior, and for my own. I should have spoken up sooner. Why didn't you? Elliot asked. William sighed. Your mother and I. It's complicated. She's devoted her life to maintaining the Vanderhal image, the perfect family, the perfect legacy, and I ruined that by falling in love with Camille. Elliot's voice was hard. No, William said firmly. You didn't ruin anything. Margaret is wrong, and I told her so last night after you left. He turned to Camille. She doesn't speak for me, Miss Rhodes, and she doesn't speak for the entire family. Camille nodded, surprised by his words. What about the board position? Elliot asked. That's why I wanted to meet. William leaned forward. The position is still yours if you want it. Margaret doesn't have the authority to take it away. And if I don't want it? William studied his son. Is that the case? I've been thinking about other options, Elliot admitted. Education reform, using the Vanderhal resources for real change. To their surprise, William smiled. Your grandmother would have approved. She was always the rebel in the family. What about Mother? Elliot asked. William's face darkened. She'll come around eventually, but it won't be easy, and I won't lie to you about that. And the wedding? Camille asked quietly. I'll be there, William said firmly, with or without Margaret. After lunch, as they walked back to the car, Camille felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Not everything was resolved, but at least Elliot wouldn't lose his entire family. That went better than I expected, she said. Elliot nodded. My father has always been the reasonable one, but I wouldn't count on my mother changing her mind anytime soon. I can handle Margaret Vanderhal, Camille said with more confidence than she felt, as long as we're together. Elliot pulled her close and kissed her. Always. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Elliot resigned from his position at his father's firm, explaining his new direction. William was supportive, even offering to help fund Elliot's education initiatives. Margaret remained distant, refusing to speak to her son or acknowledge his engagement. She made a public show of donating the family's art collection to the museum, as if to emphasize what Elliot was giving up. Camille threw herself into her teaching, but found herself distracted by thoughts of the future. The engagement ring on her finger drew comments from colleagues and students alike. Is that real? Asked Tanya, the freshman who often sought Camille's advice. Yes, it is, Camille smiled. They'd look super old, like something from a museum. It's a family heirloom, Camille explained. It's been in my fiancé's family for generations. And they gave it to you? Tanya looked impressed. They must really like you. Camille's smile faltered. Some of them do. After school, she found Elliot waiting for her. Surprise, he said, kissing her cheek. I thought we could look at apartments today. Apartments? Camille raised an eyebrow. Tired of my tiny place already? I thought we could find something that's ours, not mine, not yours, ours. The idea warmed her heart. I'd like that. They visited several places, finally finding a spacious apartment in a diverse neighborhood not far from Camille's school. It had large windows perfect for an art studio and was close to the community center, where Elliot had begun volunteering. This is the one, Camille said, standing in the empty living room, imagining their life together. Elliot wrapped his arms around her from behind. I agree, let's make an offer. As they were leaving, Elliot's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. It's my father. Camille waited as he took the call, watching his expression change from confusion to concern. What is it? She asked when he hung up. My mother, Elliot said grimly. She's calling an emergency board meeting to contest my inheritance and remove my name from the family trust. Can she do that? Not without my father's approval. But she's going to try. He ran a hand through his hair. My father wants me to come to the office now. Do you want me to come with you? Elliot hesitated. Maybe it's better if I handle this alone. Camille nodded, understanding. Call me later. He kissed her quickly. I love you. As Camille watched him drive away, a sinking feeling settled in her stomach. The Vanderhal drama was far from over, and somehow she knew the worst was yet to come. Camille paced her apartment, checking her phone every few minutes. Elliot had been gone for hours. The emergency board meeting his mother had called was clearly more serious than he'd let on. When her phone finally rang, she answered immediately. Elliot, what happened? Can I come over? His voice sounded strained. Of course. 20 minutes later, Elliot arrived, looking exhausted. He loosened his tie and collapsed onto her couch. It was worse than I thought, he admitted. My mother came prepared. Camille sat beside him. Tell me everything. She brought in the family lawyers. She's trying to invoke an old clause in my grandfather's will, something about upholding family values as a condition of inheritance. He rubbed his temples. She's arguing that by giving you the family ring and abandoning my responsibilities, I've violated those terms. Can she do that? My father doesn't think so, but it's going to be messy. He took her hand. She's determined to make this as difficult as possible. Camille looked down at the ring on her finger. Maybe I should give it back. It's not worth all this trouble. No, Elliot said firmly. That's exactly what she wants. She's trying to break us. He squeezed her hand. My father is fighting for us. He stood up to her today in a way I've never seen before. Really? Yes. He told her she was throwing away her relationship with her only son because of her own prejudice. He said he wouldn't let her destroy the family over this. Camille smiled slightly. I'm starting to like your father. He wants us to come to dinner tomorrow night, just the three of us, without your mother. She's gone to stay with her sister in New York. Apparently she can't bear to be in the same house as my father right now. Camille nodded slowly. I'll go. But Elliot, are you sure this is worth it? Your whole family is being torn apart. It was already broken, he said softly. We're just finally seeing the cracks. He pulled her close. The good news is we got the apartment. My father made sure the offer went through today. Despite everything, Camille felt a flutter of excitement. Really? That's wonderful. We can move in next week. He kissed her forehead. A fresh start. The next evening, they arrived at the Vanderhal mansion with mixed feelings. Without Margaret's presence, the house felt different, less intimidating somehow. William greeted them warmly, leading them to the small dining room rather than the formal one where the disastrous dinner had taken place. I thought we'd keep it casual tonight, he explained. Just family. The word family made Camille feel both touched and uncertain. She wasn't family yet, and might never be in Margaret's eyes. Over dinner, William asked about their plans for the apartment and the wedding. We're thinking something small, Camille said. Nothing elaborate. Nonsense, William replied. A wedding is a celebration. You should have whatever kind of day you want. He looked at his son. The Vanderhal resources are at your disposal. Your mother doesn't control everything. Thanks, Dad, Elliot said. But we want something simple, something that feels like us. William nodded. I understand, but at least let me help with the apartment. Consider it an engagement present. That's very generous, Camille said carefully. But, please, William interrupted. I want to do this. He hesitated. I need to make amends in some small way for how things have gone. After dinner, William led them to his study. There's something I want to show you. He opened an old safe hidden behind a painting and removed a leather folder. These are the original documents for the Vanderhal Foundation, he explained. Elliot, I'm making you a full trustee, effective immediately. Your mother can't contest that. Elliot looked stunned. Dad, that's a huge responsibility. It's yours by right. And now no matter what happens with the other legal battles, you'll have control over a significant portion of the family resources. He turned to Camille. I'm also adding a new education initiative to the Foundation's mission. I was hoping you might help shape it, Camille. Me? She asked in surprise. You understand what children in underprivileged communities need. Your perspective would be invaluable. Camille felt overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, William smiled. It would mean a lot to me. Then yes, she replied. I'd be honored. As they were preparing to leave, William pulled Elliot aside. Camille couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Elliot's expression soften. They embraced, something she'd never seen them do before. In the car, Elliot was quiet. What did your father say to you? Camille asked. Elliot's voice was thick with emotion. He said he was proud of me. That standing up for what I believe in, for who I love, took more courage than anything he'd ever done. He glanced at her. He also said my grandmother would have adored you. Camille felt tears prick her eyes. That means a lot. He's trying, Camille, and that's more than I ever expected. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of packing and planning. Camille donated most of her old furniture, keeping only a few cherished pieces. Elliot insisted they start fresh, choosing everything together. They were at a furniture store when Elliot received a text that made him frown. What is it? Camille asked. Isabella Preston, he said. She wants to meet for coffee. Your mother's choice for you. Camille tried to keep her voice neutral. Yes, she says it's important. Are you going to go? Elliot hesitated. I think I should, just to make it clear where things stand. Camille nodded, though she felt uneasy. When? Tomorrow afternoon. That night Camille couldn't sleep. She trusted Elliot completely, but Isabella's sudden desire to meet bothered her. Why now? What could she possibly have to say? The next day at school, she found it hard to focus on her classes. When the final bell rang, she checked her phone. No messages from Elliot. His coffee with Isabella would be happening now. She was gathering her things when there was a knock at her classroom door. She looked up to see William Vanderhal. Mr. Vanderhal, she said in surprise. Is everything all right? Please call me William. He entered the classroom, looking around with interest at the student artwork on the walls. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. I was just finishing up. She gestured to a chair. What brings you here? William sat down, looking slightly uncomfortable. I wanted to speak with you, privately. Camille felt a flutter of anxiety. About Elliot? About my wife, he sighed. Margaret has returned from New York. She's filing papers to contest not only Elliot's inheritance, but the engagement itself. Can she do that? Legally, no. But she's determined to make things difficult. He looked at Camille directly. She's also planning to approach you directly. Me? Why? To offer you money, William said bluntly. To walk away from Elliot. Camille felt as if she'd been slapped. She thinks I can be bought off? She doesn't understand love that isn't tied to advantage. William shook his head sadly. I wanted to warn you, and to assure you that I will continue to stand with you and Elliot, regardless of what Margaret does. Thank you for telling me, Camille said, her mind racing. Does Elliot know? Not yet. I came to you first because... He hesitated. Because Margaret will try to convince you that you're ruining Elliot's life, that he'll resent you eventually for what he's giving up. And you don't think that will happen? William smiled. I've never seen my son as happy as he is with you, as authentic. Money and position were never what drove him. That was Margaret's dream, not his. After William left, Camille sat at her desk, trying to process everything. First Isabella, now this threat from Margaret. It was as if the universe was testing their relationship from all sides. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. Just finished with Isabella, need to talk. Meet me at our new place. Our new place. Despite everything, the words made her smile. The apartment was empty, but the late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, making the space glow. Elliot was waiting in what would be their living room, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall. Hey, he said when she arrived. How was your day? Interesting, she replied, sitting beside him. Your father came to see me. Elliot looked surprised. My father? Why? She told him about Margaret's return and her plans. Elliot's jaw tightened. I can't believe she'd go that far. He shook his head. Actually, I can. But to try to buy you off, that's low, even for her. What would you do if I took the money and ran? Camille asked, half joking. I'd follow you, he said without hesitation. Money or no money? She leaned her head on his shoulder. How was coffee with Isabella? Elliot sighed. Enlightening. She didn't want to reconnect. She wanted to warn me. About what? Apparently, my mother approached her father about reigniting our relationship. She's still trying to find a way to break us up. Camille felt a chill. And what did Isabella say? She told her father no, she's actually engaged to someone in Paris. Elliot smiled slightly. She wanted to tell me in person that she's on our side. Really? Camille was genuinely surprised. Really, she said what my mother is doing is wrong and she won't be part of it. He took Camille's hand. Not everyone is against us, Camille. They sat in silence for a moment, looking around at their empty apartment, a blank canvas for their future. We should start painting this weekend, Camille said. Make it ours before the furniture arrives. Agreed. What color are you thinking? For this room? Something warm? Maybe a soft gold? Elliot smiled. I trust your artistic judgment. They were discussing other colors when Elliot's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. It's my father. The call was brief, but Camille could tell it wasn't good news. What happened? She asked when he hung up. My mother is on her way here. My father tried to stop her, but... He shook his head. She found out about the apartment. Camille felt her stomach drop. Here? Now? We should go, Elliot said, standing up. I don't want you subjected to whatever scene she's planning to make. No, Camille said firmly. This is our home. I'm not running from her. Elliot looked at her with a mixture of pride and concern. Are you sure? She can be vicious when she's angry. I'm sure we face her together. They didn't have to wait long. Soon they heard the click of heels in the hallway, then a sharp knock at the door. Elliot squeezed Camille's hand before opening it. Margaret Vanderhal stood there, elegant as always in an expensive suit, her face a mask of cold fury. She pushed past Elliot into the apartment, her gaze sweeping dismissively over the empty space before landing on Camille. So, this is where my son is throwing away his future, she said. How quaint. Mother, Elliot's voice was warning. Why are you here? Margaret ignored him, focusing on Camille. I understand you're quite the ambitious young woman, Miss Rhodes. Working your way up from nothing, latching onto my son. That's enough, Elliot snapped. I'm merely stating facts, Margaret replied coldly. The question is, how much is your ambition worth? She opened her designer handbag and removed a checkbook. I'm prepared to be generous. $1 million, tax-free. All you have to do is walk away. No one needs to know. Camille stared at her in disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about protecting my family. Margaret began writing the check. $2 million then. Think of what you could do with that money. Help those underprivileged children you care so much about. Mother, stop this right now, Elliot demanded. You're embarrassing yourself. Margaret tore out the check and held it out to Camille. Well, isn't this what you wanted all along? Financial security? The chance to escape your humble beginnings? Camille looked at the check, then back at Margaret. Mrs. Vanderhal, I understand that you love your son, that you want what you think is best for him. Don't presume to know what I think, Margaret snapped. But there's something you don't understand, Camille continued calmly. I love Elliot for who he is, not what he has. I didn't fall in love with the Vanderhal name or fortune. I fell in love with a man who sees me for who I am. How touching, Margaret said sarcastically. But feelings change. Reality sets in. 5 years from now, when the novelty has worn off, what then? Then we'll still have each other, Elliot said, moving to stand beside Camille. Something you wouldn't understand, since you've never loved anything more than status and appearances. Margaret's face flushed with anger. How dare you speak to me that way after everything I've done for you? You've done nothing but try to control me, Elliot interrupted, to mold me into your idea of a perfect son. But I'm done living your version of my life. So this is your answer? Margaret turned to Camille, waving the check. You're refusing my offer. I am, Camille said simply. Margaret tore the check in half, her eyes cold. Then I'll make sure you both regret this decision. The Vanderhal name opens many doors in this city, Miss Rhodes. It can close them just as easily. Are you threatening me? Camille asked. I'm promising you. Margaret looked around the apartment one more time. Enjoy your little love nest while it lasts. This fantasy won't end well for either of you. She turned to leave, but Elliot blocked her path. If you try to hurt Camille in any way, her career, her reputation, anything, you'll lose me forever. Is that what you want? For a moment, something like pain flickered across Margaret's face. You've already chosen her over your family. What more is there to lose? A relationship with your future grandchildren, Camille said quietly. Margaret froze, her hand on the doorknob. What did you say? We want children someday, Camille continued. Your grandchildren. Is your pride worth never knowing them? For a brief moment, Margaret seemed thrown off balance. Then her expression hardened again. Using unborn children as emotional leverage. How calculating of you. It's not leverage, it's reality, Elliot said. The choices you make now will affect your future too, Mother. Margaret said nothing more, simply walked out, closing the door firmly behind her. When she was gone, Camille let out a shaky breath. Well, that was intense. Elliot pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry. She had no right to speak to you that way. It's okay, Camille said, though her heart was still racing. At least now we know where we stand. Did you mean what you said? About children? She smiled up at him. Someday, yes, if you want that too. I do. He kissed her softly. And for what it's worth, you handled my mother better than anyone ever has. She doesn't scare me, Camille said. Not anymore. But as they left the apartment that evening, Camille couldn't shake the feeling that Margaret Vanderhal's threats weren't empty. She had power and influence, and a wounded pride that demanded vengeance. The next week was filled with moving and settling into their new home. William helped wherever he could, even arranging for a housewarming gift, a beautiful piano for their living room. So you can play whenever you want, he told Camille. Your music touched a lot of people that night. Camille was touched by his thoughtfulness. With each passing day, she felt more comfortable around Elliot's father, seeing the genuine effort he was making to welcome her into the family. But Margaret remained a shadow over their happiness. True to her word, she began making subtle moves against them. Elliot's former colleagues suddenly stopped returning his calls. Donors he'd been courting for his education initiative backed out without explanation. And then it touched Camille directly. She was called into the principal's office one morning before classes. Principal Harris looked uncomfortable. Camille, we've received some concerns from a major donor about your relationship with a student. What? Camille was stunned. That's completely false. I know that, Harris said quickly. But this donor is threatening to pull funding if we don't investigate. They've made some specific allegations about you and that freshman, Tanya Williams. Camille felt sick. Tanya was the girl who had admired her engagement ring, the shy student who often sought her guidance. This is ridiculous, she said. Tanya is a student who needs support, nothing more. I believe you, Harris assured her, but we have to follow protocol. There will be an investigation, and in the meantime what? You'll be placed on administrative leave with pay, he added quickly. It's standard procedure. Camille felt the room spin. Who made these allegations? Harris hesitated. The donor requested anonymity, but they're connected to the Vanderhal Foundation. Margaret. It had to be. Principal Harris, I need to be honest with you. I'm engaged to Elliot Vanderhal. His mother disapproves of our relationship. These allegations are her attempt to discredit me. Harris looked surprised. You're engaged to a Vanderhal? I had no idea. Yes, and my future mother-in-law is willing to do anything to break us up, even something as despicable as this. Harris frowned. That's a serious accusation, Camille. So is falsely claiming I'm inappropriate with a student. She took a deep breath. Call William Vanderhal. He'll confirm everything I'm saying. By the end of the day, Camille had been cleared to return to work. William had indeed intervened, furious when he learned what Margaret had done, but the damage was done. Rumors spread quickly in the school, and Camille could feel the sideways glances from colleagues who had heard whispers of the allegations. When she told Elliot that evening, his face darkened with anger. This has gone too far, he said, pacing their living room. Using innocent students as pawns in her vendetta? I'm going to confront her. No, Camille said firmly. That's what she wants, to provoke a reaction, to drive a wedge between us. Then what do we do? I won't let her destroy your reputation. Camille thought for a moment. We show her she can't win. We move forward with our lives, with our plans. We get married. Elliot stopped pacing. You want to move up the wedding? Yes. Something small. Just us and people who genuinely support us. Let's not give her more time to cause trouble. Elliot sat beside her, taking her hands. Are you sure? I wanted to give you the wedding of your dreams. Camille smiled. My dream is marrying you. Everything else is just details. The next day, they began planning a simple ceremony for the following month. William was thrilled, offering his summer house on Cape Cod as the venue. It's where I proposed to Margaret, he admitted. But it's time to make new memories there. As word of their plans spread, something unexpected happened. People began to take sides. Most of Elliot's business associates maintained their distance, afraid of crossing Margaret, but others, friends he'd made outside the Vanderhal circle, colleagues of Camille's, even some of her former foster care workers, rallied around them. Tanya, the student Margaret had tried to use in her scheme, asked if she could attend the wedding with her mother. "You're the best teacher I've ever had," she told Camille. "I don't care what anybody says." The support was overwhelming, but Margaret's shadow still loomed. What would she do next? How far was she willing to go to keep the Vanderhal name pure? The answer came sooner than they expected. 2 weeks before the wedding, Elliot received a call from his father. William's voice was urgent. "You need to come to the house, now." "What's happened?" Elliot asked. "It's your mother. She's had a heart attack." The hospital waiting room was cold and sterile. Elliot paced while Camille sat quietly, her hands clasped in her lap. William had gone to speak with the doctors, his face drawn with worry. "This is my fault," Elliot muttered. "All the stress, the fighting, it was too much for her." "You can't blame yourself," Camille said gently. "Your mother made her own choices. But if I had handled things differently—" "Elliot." She stood and took his hands. "Your mother's heart attack isn't punishment for loving me. It's a medical condition." William returned, looking exhausted. "She's stable. The doctor says she had a mild heart attack. They caught it in time." "Can we see her?" Elliot asked. William hesitated. "She's asking for you, Elliot, just you." Camille squeezed Elliot's hand. "Go. I'll wait here." As Elliot followed his father down the hospital corridor, his mind raced. What would he say to his mother? Would this change anything between them? Margaret Vanderhal looked small in the hospital bed, her usual perfect appearance disheveled, her face pale. When she saw Elliot, something flickered in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or resignation. "Mother," he said, approaching cautiously. "Elliot." Her voice was weaker than he'd ever heard it. "You came." "Of course I came." He sat in the chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've had a heart attack," she said with a ghost of her usual sharpness. "The doctors say I need to avoid stress." Elliot didn't know how to respond to that. Was this another manipulation? A way to make him feel guilty? "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said finally. Margaret looked away. "Is she here? Your fiancée?" "Camille is in the waiting room. She drove me here." Margaret seemed surprised by this. "Why would she do that after everything?" "Because she's a good person, Mother. Better than you've given her credit for." A long silence stretched between them. Margaret adjusted her blanket, avoiding his gaze. "The doctors say I'll need someone to help me when I go home," she said eventually. "Your father works too much. He can't be there all the time." Elliot understood what she was asking. "When is your discharge date?" 3 days. 3 days before the wedding. The timing couldn't have been worse. "We'll figure something out," Elliot said, careful not to make promises he couldn't keep. Margaret's eyes met his. "Are you still planning to marry her?" "Yes, in 3 days." She flinched slightly. "I see." Her voice was tight. "Well, don't let my health interfere with your plans." "Mother, no, I mean it." She closed her eyes briefly. "This changes nothing, Elliot. I still believe you're making a terrible mistake." Even from a hospital bed, she couldn't let go of her prejudice. Elliot felt a wave of sadness. "I should go. You need to rest." As he stood to leave, Margaret spoke again. "That ring, the one you gave her." She swallowed. "It was my mother's." "Did you know that?" "Yes, I did. She was different. Not like me." Margaret's voice grew distant. "She used to tell me that love was the only thing worth fighting for. I thought she was naive." Elliot paused. Maybe she was right. Maybe. Margaret turned her face away. But some battles leave scars that never heal. Back in the waiting room, Camille stood when she saw him. "How is she?" "Physically, she'll recover." Elliot ran a hand through his hair. "Emotionally, she's still the same." William joined them, coffee cups in hand. "The doctors want to keep her for a few days. She'll need care when she goes home." "She's being discharged the day of our wedding," Elliot said. William looked troubled. "I didn't realize the timing." "I can arrange for a nurse." "No," Camille interrupted. "We should postpone the wedding." Both men looked at her in surprise. "Are you sure?" Elliot asked. "After everything she's done?" "I'm sure." Camille's voice was steady. "I don't want our wedding day to be overshadowed by this, and I don't want to give your mother any more reasons to resent me." William smiled gratefully. "That's very considerate of you, Camille." "It's the right thing to do," she said simply. Later that night in their apartment, Elliot pulled Camille into his arms. "You're an amazing woman, you know that?" She rested her head on his chest. "I'm just trying to rise above the drama, like I teach my students to do. Postponing the wedding is a big sacrifice. It's just a date, Elliot. What matters is that we're together." He kissed the top of her head. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," she teased. "But you're stuck with me anyway." The next day, Camille was surprised when William called and asked to meet her for lunch, alone. They sat at a quiet corner table in a small cafe near her school. "Thank you for suggesting the postponement," William said after they'd ordered. "It means more than you know." "It felt like the right decision," Camille replied. "I don't want to start our marriage with more conflict." William nodded thoughtfully. "Margaret and I visited her doctor this morning. He was very clear about the changes she needs to make. Less stress, more rest. That's good advice for anyone." "Yes, but for Margaret," he sighed. "Her whole identity is wrapped up in the Vanderhal name, in maintaining control. Letting go isn't easy for her." "I understand that," Camille said carefully. "But her actions have hurt people, not just me, but Elliot, and that student she tried to use in her scheme." "I know." William looked genuinely regretful. "I've enabled her behavior for too long, made excuses. It took seeing my son's happiness at stake to finally stand up to her." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "I wanted to give you this, in private." Camille took it hesitantly. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet with a small heart charm. "It belonged to my mother," William explained. "Margaret never wanted it, said it was too simple, but I've always thought it represented something pure. True love doesn't need to be flashy." Camille was touched. "It's beautiful, thank you." "My mother would have loved you," William said with a smile. "She believed in judging people by their character, not their background or the color of their skin. She sounds like a wise woman." "She was." He paused. "There's something else I wanted to discuss. A proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "I'd like you to consider heading the new education initiative at the Vanderhal Foundation. Full-time." Camille stared at him in surprise. "Leave teaching?" "Not necessarily. You could take a sabbatical, see if you like the work. You'd have resources to make real change in underserved schools, to implement the ideas you've been sharing with me." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it." William smiled. "No pressure, but I believe you could do incredible things with the right support." As they finished lunch, William's phone rang. His expression changed as he listened to the caller. "What is it?" Camille asked when he hung up. "Margaret. She's asking to see you." The hospital room felt smaller than it had the day before. Margaret was sitting up in bed, looking marginally better but still frail. "Miss Rhodes," she said as Camille entered. "Thank you for coming." "Mrs. Vanderhal." Camille stood at the foot of the bed, unsure of what to expect. "Please, sit." Margaret gestured to the chair beside her. Camille sat, her back straight, her guard up. "I understand you've postponed the wedding," Margaret said. "Yes, it seemed like the right thing to do. Because of me." It wasn't a question. "Because your health is important to your family," Camille replied diplomatically. "To Elliot." Margaret studied her face. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone after his money, his position." She adjusted her blanket. "Someone who would use him as a stepping stone." "I love your son," Camille said simply. "Who he is, not what he has." "So you keep saying." Margaret's voice held less venom than before. "William tells me you've declined my settlement offer." "I'm not for sale, Mrs. Vanderhal." A hint of respect flickered in Margaret's eyes. "No, apparently not." They sat in silence for a moment. "Why did you ask to see me?" Camille finally asked. Margaret looked out the window. "The doctors say I need to reduce stress in my life. That means accepting things I cannot change, like Elliot marrying me." "Yes." The word seemed to cost her something. "I won't pretend to be happy about it, but I'm tired of fighting." Camille wasn't sure she believed this sudden change of heart. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying I won't oppose the marriage anymore." Margaret turned back to her. "For Elliot's sake, and for my health, and the false allegations, the threats. We'll stop." Margaret's voice hardened slightly. "But don't expect a warm welcome into the family. That may never come." "I don't need your approval, Mrs. Vanderhal, but Elliot needs his mother." Camille stood up. "If you're serious about accepting our marriage, prove it with actions, not words." As she turned to leave, Margaret spoke again. "The ring. It looks good on you." Camille paused, surprised by the almost compliment. "Thank you. Take care of it. It's survived 6 generations of Vanderhal women." A ghost of a smile touched Margaret's lips. "Some of them were quite formidable." "I believe that," Camille said, "and I'll take good care of it, just as I'll take good care of your son." When Camille told Elliot about her conversation with Margaret, he was skeptical. "She's been manipulative her whole life. Why would she change now?" "Maybe the heart attack scared her," Camille suggested. "Or maybe she's just being practical. Either way, I think we should accept this olive branch, small as it is." Elliot sighed. "I don't trust her. Neither do I, completely. But we have to start somewhere." They decided to move forward with the wedding, rescheduling for 3 weeks later. To their surprise, Margaret made no objections when William told her the new date. The next few weeks passed in a blur of wedding preparations and settling into their new life together. Camille considered William's job offer, eventually deciding to try it for a year while taking a sabbatical from teaching. "I can always go back if I miss the classroom," she told Elliot. "But the chance to affect policy, to help schools across the city, it's too important to pass up." Margaret was discharged from the hospital and went home with a nurse's care. She made no further attempts to interfere with their plans, though she remained distant, communicating only through William. The day before the wedding, Camille received an unexpected delivery at their apartment, a large flat package with no note. Inside was a portrait that had hung in the Vanderhal mansion, showing a stern-looking woman from the early 1900s, wearing the same ring that now adorned Camille's finger. "That's my great-grandmother," Elliot said in surprise. "The first woman to wear the ring. Why would your mother send this?" "I have no idea." Elliot studied the painting. "But my great-grandmother was known for her strong will. She caused quite a scandal in her day by marrying my great-grandfather against her family's wishes." Camille smiled at that. "Maybe your mother is acknowledging a family tradition of rebellious love. That would be quite a change of heart." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The ceremony would be held at William's Cape Cod house, with only 40 guests. Close friends, Camille's colleagues, and a few of Elliot's business associates who had remained loyal. As Camille prepared in an upstairs bedroom, there was a knock at the door. She expected her friend Lisa, who was helping with her hair, but instead found William standing there. "You look beautiful," he said warmly. "Thank you." She smoothed the simple white dress she'd chosen. "Is everything okay downstairs?" "Yes, everything's ready." He hesitated. "There's someone who wants to see you." Before Camille could ask who, Margaret appeared in the doorway. She looked better than she had in the hospital, though still not fully recovered. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a small box. "May I come in?" she asked stiffly. William retreated, leaving the two women alone. "I didn't expect to see you today," Camille said honestly. "I almost didn't come." Margaret stepped further into the room, but William insisted that I at least make an appearance. An awkward silence fell between them. "Is that for me?" Camille asked, nodding at the box. "Yes." Margaret held it out. "It's tradition for the Vanderhal bride to wear these on her wedding day." Inside the box was a pair of diamond earrings, simple but elegant. "They're beautiful," Camille said. "They've been in the family for generations," Margaret explained. "Like the ring." Camille looked at her directly. "Why are you giving these to me? You've made it very clear how you feel about me marrying your son." Margaret sat down carefully on a nearby chair. "The truth? I don't know." She smoothed her dress. "Perhaps I'm getting old, or the heart attack changed something in me. Or maybe what? Maybe I've realized that fighting Elliot's choice only pushes him further away." She looked up at Camille. "I won't pretend I approve. I won't lie and say this is the match I wanted for my son, but he's made his choice clear. And you're accepting that?" "I'm trying." The words seemed difficult for her, for Elliot's sake, and perhaps for my own. Camille studied her face, looking for signs of deception. "This feels like quite a change from the woman who tried to buy me off, who made false accusations about me and a student." Margaret had the grace to look ashamed. "I was wrong to do that. It was beneath me." She stood up. "I should go. William is waiting." As she reached the door, Camille called after her. "Mrs. Vanderhal?" Margaret turned. "Thank you for the earrings, and for coming today." Margaret nodded once, her face unreadable, and left. Camille put on the diamond earrings, wondering if this was truly a peace offering or just another strategy. Either way, she wouldn't let Margaret's presence, or her past actions, overshadow this day. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Camille walked alone down an aisle created by white chairs on the lawn overlooking the ocean. Elliot waited for her under an arch of flowers, his face lighting up when he saw her. To everyone's surprise, Margaret sat in the front row beside William, her face composed. She didn't smile, but she didn't object either, when the officiant asked if anyone had reason to oppose the union. Their vows were personal and heartfelt. Camille spoke of finding home in Elliot's love, after a lifetime of feeling adrift. Elliot promised to stand by her through whatever challenges came, to choose her every day for the rest of his life. "The ring you're wearing," he said as they exchanged vows, "has been passed down through generations of Vanderhals, but none of them wore it with more grace or deserved it more than you." From the front row, William dabbed at his eyes. Beside him, Margaret's expression softened almost imperceptibly. At the reception, Camille was surrounded by well-wishers, her students, her colleagues, even some of her former foster care workers who had helped raise her. One elderly woman hugged her tightly. "I always knew you were destined for great things," she said. "You had such determination even as a child." Elliot was pulled away for photos, leaving Camille momentarily alone. She was admiring the ocean view when Margaret approached. "It was a lovely ceremony," she said formally. "Thank you for being here," Camille replied. "It means a lot to Elliot." Margaret nodded, then surprised Camille by adding, "The earrings suit you. They're beautiful, a wonderful tradition." They stood in awkward silence until William joined them, champagne glasses in hand. "My two favorite ladies," he said cheerfully, handing them each a glass. "A toast to new beginnings." Margaret accepted the glass but said nothing. "Did you know," William continued, "that Camille has agreed to head our education initiative? She's going to transform how we support underserved schools." "Is that so?" Margaret looked at Camille with new interest. "What are your plans?" Camille hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Art and music programs for schools that have lost funding, teacher training focused on reaching children from difficult backgrounds, and scholarships for foster children who want to become educators." "Ambitious," Margaret commented. "Necessary," Camille countered. "Every child deserves the chance to find their passion, to be seen for their potential rather than their circumstances." For the first time, something like genuine respect flickered in Margaret's eyes. Well, the foundation could use some fresh perspective. It wasn't approval, but it was acknowledgement. Camille would take it. As the reception continued, Elliot found her by the water's edge. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "Yes," she smiled up at him. "I was just thinking about how far we've come." "Having regrets?" he teased. "Not one." She touched the ring on her finger. "Your mother gave me the family earrings." Elliot looked surprised. "Really, that's unexpected. I think she's trying in her own way." "Don't get your hopes up," he warned. "She may never fully accept us." "I know, but at least she's here. It's a start." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the water, they rejoined their guests. William made a toast to the couple, speaking movingly about love that overcomes obstacles. To everyone's shock, Margaret stood up afterward. "I would also like to say something," she announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gathering. Elliot tensed beside Camille, preparing for the worst. "My son," Margaret began, looking directly at Elliot, "has always had a mind of his own. Even as a child he questioned everything, challenged every rule." A few guests chuckled nervously. "I have not always understood his choices," she continued, "or approved of them." The tension was palpable. "But today, seeing him so happy," her voice faltered slightly, "I am reminded that a mother's duty is not to control her child's life, but to wish for their happiness." She raised her glass. "To Elliot and Camille, may your life together bring you joy." A collective sigh of relief swept through the gathering as glasses were raised. Elliot stared at his mother in disbelief. "Did that really just happen?" he whispered to Camille. "I think it did," she replied, equally stunned. Later, as they shared their first dance, Elliot held Camille close. "I never thought my mother would come around even a little." "People can surprise you," Camille said. "Sometimes they rise to the occasion. Like you did, from the very beginning." He spun her gently. "Standing tall in that dining room when we first brought you to meet them, not backing down. I had something worth fighting for." As the dance ended, Camille noticed Margaret watching them from a table at the edge of the dance floor. Their eyes met across the room. Margaret didn't smile, but she nodded once, a gesture of grudging respect, if not quite acceptance. It was enough, for now. 3 months later, Camille was settling into her new role at the Vanderhal Foundation. Her office overlooked Boston Harbor, a stark contrast to her former classroom, but she found the work fulfilling. She was making real changes, implementing programs that would touch thousands of students' lives. Elliot had started his own consulting firm, focusing on businesses that gave back to their communities. He was happier than she'd ever seen him, free from the weight of family expectations. William visited often, genuinely interested in Camille's work, and increasingly supportive of their marriage. Margaret remained distant but civil, attending occasional family dinners and making stilted conversation. One rainy afternoon, Camille was surprised to find Margaret waiting outside her office. "Do you have a moment?" Margaret asked. "Of course." Camille invited her in, curious about this unexpected visit. Margaret looked around the office with a critical eye. "William says your education programs are showing promising results." "Yes, especially in the South End schools. We've seen a 30% increase in arts participation." "Good." Margaret sat down, her posture perfect as always. I've been reviewing the foundation's budget. There's room to expand your initiatives. Camille raised an eyebrow. Really? Don't look so surprised. I can recognize effective work when I see it. Margaret opened her purse and removed a folder. I've drafted some thoughts on potential donors who might be interested in supporting your programs. Camille accepted the folder, genuinely surprised. Thank you. This is unexpected. Yes, well, Margaret straightened her jacket. The Vanderhal name has always been associated with excellence. If we're going to fund education, we should do it properly. It wasn't warmth or acceptance, but it was collaboration. Coming from Margaret, that was significant. There's something else, Margaret continued. William mentioned you're planning a mural project at Westbridge High. Yes, with my former students. We're painting the history of Boston, showing diverse perspectives. Margaret nodded. The Vanderhal collection has some historical photographs that might be useful references. If you're interested. Camille smiled. I'd like that. The students would appreciate it. As Margaret stood to leave, she hesitated. I received a letter yesterday from a young woman named Tanya Williams. Camille's breath caught. My student, the one you... Yes. Margaret had the grace to look uncomfortable. She wrote to tell me how much your teaching has meant to her, how you've changed her life. Tanya is very special. She mentioned she's applying to art school, that you've been helping her prepare her portfolio. She's incredibly talented. Margaret reached into her purse again and pulled out a check. The Vanderhal Foundation would like to establish a scholarship in your name, for students like Tanya. Camille stared at the check, then at Margaret. Why? Consider it atonement for my actions regarding that young woman. Margaret placed the check on the desk, and perhaps recognition that some traditions need to evolve. After Margaret left, Camille sat at her desk, reflecting on how much had changed in a year. From the secret relationship with Elliot, to the confrontation at the dinner to today, an actual olive branch from Margaret Vanderhal. That evening, Camille was painting in the small studio they'd created in their apartment when Elliot returned from work. You'll never guess who visited me today, she said as he kissed her hello. The president, Oprah, my mother, he joked. Actually, yes, your mother. Elliot's eyebrows shot up. What did she want? Camille told him about the funding, the photographs, and the scholarship. I can't believe it, Elliot said. She actually admitted she was wrong about Tanya. Not in those exact words, Camille laughed, but close enough. I think she's finally starting to see me as a person, not just a threat to the Vanderhal legacy. It's about time. He wrapped his arms around her. Did I tell you Dad invited us to Thanksgiving at the house? He says Mother actually suggested it. Progress, Camille said, leaning into his embrace. Slow progress, but still. Speaking of progress, Elliot said, his voice turning serious, I've been thinking about what you said, about starting a family someday, and I think someday could be sooner rather than later, if you're ready. Camille turned in his arms to face him. Are you saying you want to try for a baby? Yes. His eyes were full of love. I want to build a family with you, Camille. A family where everyone is valued for who they are, not what they look like or where they come from. Even if your mother never fully accepts our children, they'll have more than enough love without her. But honestly, Elliot smiled, I think even Margaret Vanderhal won't be able to resist our kids. 6 months later, Camille stood in front of her students at Westbridge High, guiding them as they put the finishing touches on the massive mural that now covered the school's main hallway. She had returned to teaching part-time while continuing her work at the foundation, finding joy in balancing both worlds. Tanya, now a senior, was adding details to a section showing children of different backgrounds reaching toward the sky. Miss Rhodes, she called, come see what I added. Camille walked over, one hand resting lightly on her growing baby bump. There in the corner of the mural, Tanya had painted a small family, a tall white man, a black woman with natural curls, and a child between them, holding both their hands. It's beautiful, Tanya, Camille said, touched by the gesture. It's you and Mr. Vanderhal, Tanya explained, and your baby. The future. Very appropriate, said a voice behind them. Camille turned to see William and, surprisingly, Margaret standing in the hallway. They had come to see the mural's completion, a project partially funded by the Vanderhal Foundation. Grandmother and Grandfather Vanderhal, Tanya said, pointing to 2 smaller figures she'd added behind the family. Watching over everyone, Margaret stepped closer to examine the painting. You're very talented, Miss Williams. Thank you, Mrs. Vanderhal. Tanya beamed. Miss Rhodes says I have a good chance at that scholarship your foundation is offering. Based on this work, I would agree. Margaret's eyes moved to Camille's baby bump. How are you feeling? Good days and bad, Camille admitted, but mostly good. You're carrying high, Margaret observed. My mother always said that means a girl. We'll find out soon enough, Camille replied, surprised by the almost normal conversation. As the students continued working, William pulled Elliot aside to discuss foundation business. Camille found herself alone with Margaret, watching the mural take shape. It really is impressive, Margaret said, gesturing to the wall. You've accomplished something meaningful here. Thank you. That means a lot. Margaret's eyes drifted to Camille's stomach again. Have you thought about names? If it's a girl, we're thinking about Grace, after my foster mother who encouraged my art. Margaret nodded. A good name. Strong. And if it's a boy, Camille continued carefully, we're considering William, after his grandfather. Something flickered in Margaret's eyes. Surprise, perhaps even pleasure. William would be honored. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the students work. It wasn't friendship, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was respect, a beginning. That ring, Margaret said suddenly, nodding at Camille's hand. The day Elliot proposed, I said a black woman would never wear it. Camille tensed, uncertain where this was going. I was wrong, Margaret continued. It suits you, as does the Vanderhal name. Coming from Margaret Vanderhal, it was as close to acceptance as Camille might ever get. Thank you, she said simply. Margaret straightened her shoulders. Well, we should let you get back to your students. As the Vanderhals prepared to leave, Margaret paused. William and I expect you both for dinner on Sunday. We have some nursery furniture in the attic that might be suitable. Family pieces, family dinner, small steps toward inclusion. We'll be there, Camille promised. Later that evening, as Camille and Elliot walked home together, she told him about Margaret's invitation. Nursery furniture? Elliot laughed in disbelief. My mother is offering family heirlooms for our baby. Apparently so. Camille squeezed his hand. People can change, Elliot. Even Margaret Vanderhal. I never thought I'd see the day. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Are you happy, Camille, with all of this? She thought about the question. Her life had transformed so completely in the past year, from lonely art teacher to wife, expectant mother, foundation director. She had faced prejudice, threats, and rejection, but she had also found love, purpose, and even a kind of family she never expected to have. Yes, she said, her hand resting on her stomach where their child grew. I'm happier than I ever thought possible. As they continued walking home, Camille thought about the family portrait Tanya had painted on the mural, a visual representation of what they had fought for, the right to love across boundaries, to create something new and beautiful from different worlds. The Vanderhal ring glinted on her finger, catching the late afternoon sun. 6 generations of Vanderhal women had worn it before her, but none perhaps had earned it quite the way she had, with dignity, courage, and unwavering love. A black woman now wore the ring they swore she never would, and the future it represented was brighter than anyone could have imagined.